I really like to buy whiskey.
Hey everybody, welcome to Another Proof. My name's Ian. I'm with Darryl and Dave, and we're going to be talking about buying whiskey today.
Hi, I'm Dave, and I really like to buy whiskey.
I'm Darryl, and I think I've got a buying habit some days.
Yeah, habit or addiction? That's the question.
It's a fine line on definition right there.
Yeah.
Right?
Whether it's a habit or an addiction.
And I didn't quite understand it to begin with. So when we started into whiskey and I saw Ian's little whiskey closet, it's not a shelf, it's a whiskey closet.
Who's to say? I'm not
and
sure
I
about
was
that.
like, how? Like, who buys this many bottles of whiskey? It made no sense to me. Like, you buy like a 2-4 and you drink it, and then you get another one and you drink it, or like you get a bottle of rum and you have rum and Coke and it goes down. Or before I'd have like Jameson and ginger ale and it's gone. I never got the concept of like that collection of having the alcohol until I started into this journey and I started loving whiskey so much. And it is about like the different whiskeys and having a variety on your shelf. Like I like that aspect of it, but the collection part of it is what I didn't expect. Where my wife collects books, she's got like bookshelves full of books, and I found what I like to collect, and it's all there behind me, and it makes me
bottle
feel
after
happy.
And it looks nice,
right?
So imagine we weren't in Ontario and actually had providers that told us what was coming.
Yes.
Almost like a Whiskey Go, Pokemon Go, or Pokemon Go app, where you just got to collect them all and you're just out traveling.
Oh my gosh, that would be so much fun. I'm on board for that.
I'm not. I'd spend so much money.
I mean, my bankroll isn't on board for that, but I mean, that would be a good game for whiskey lovers.
It definitely would be. Collect them all.
Yeah, but it's fun. And like even the journey that like I didn't realize how limited the bottles that we had here in Ontario were, and that there were limited releases and that we would have to go into allocations to get certain bottles. Remember Ian asking me to register for it before I even liked whiskey so that he could have an extra name in the draw for him.
Yeah.
But like there's bottles that are just hard to come by, and even Blanton's, like I love the collectibles of it. I love the horses, the collecting the different horses of the heads. Like it's just a fun bottle topper to be able to have and to have on your wall or in your collection. But then you go to the LCBO and it's got a 2-bottle limit, and you're like, well, I thought I could just go buy all 7.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and they're peeling the wax off and pulling the caps out.
Yeah.
stealing horses. You're the guy in the news like this week that walked out of 2 different LCBOs with $500 something worth of whiskey.
Oh wow! I didn't hear that story.
Yeah.
But yeah, but we're also pretty lucky with the LCBO, even though our collection or more rare bottles come and go, having the price set. Where when Blanton's comes out, it's going to be $63.50 or whatever it is.
Yeah, for the most part.
Not having to run around and worry about what private stores are going to mark it up to.
Yeah.
Right, because you get a lot of that in the States, don't you? You get a lot of bottles being marked up because they know the demand's there for it.
Yeah, depending if it's an allocated state or not.
Yeah, if it's a government-run state, if the Liquor Control Board is state-driven, then they can it's same as us, right? We have the LCBO, the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. Gotcha. They'll have a state controlled liquor sales basically. But if they don't have that, then the retailers have freedom to do what they want with it. So, which is kind of nice and kind of not. I'm not sure what I'd prefer. I like the fact that we have I'm also at a little different stage than Dave is for sure. And Daryl's probably catching up to me more than where Dave is at. Like we're all at different stages, but I'm past the point of trying a whole bunch of whiskey. I kind of know what I want, or I kind of want the special things. So I'm either going and buying a bottle of Wild Turkey 101 or Four Roses, single barrel to drink, or I'm looking at the fun new whiskeys that are coming out saying, hey, what would that do in a tasting? How would that work? Or, which I'm really sad we don't get, is barrel picks. BC has started to do a few lately, which I'm Andrew West has hooked me up with a couple of those. But my friends in the States, they're all talking about these barrel picks. Some of them are going on barrel picks and doing that, buying the barrel themselves and putting a fun sticker on it and all that stuff. That's what I really want. So I've been trying to grab some of those here or there from my buddies in the States, and that's the fun bottles that I really want to acquire. It doesn't even have to be good whiskey. It's more the story along with it. Like my friend Ty picked the first cast strength Peach Street Distillery pick there was. So I got one of those here, and it's an interesting bottle. He'll say the same thing, I think, but it's it's a cool story, and I enjoy that pour every time I go to it. So that's kind of where I lean towards buying stuff now.
Yeah, and we've got the benefit of many stores out west will ship to us. So finding some of those more rare bourbons and scotches that we don't have in Ontario are starting to be able to be shipped to us at a relatively cheap price. If you buy 6 bottles, it's the same as shipping one. So you want to make sure you got a decent selection.
Be careful, there's tax on that.
Yeah,
there's
we got spiked with the tax on that. We had a buddy who was bringing in a shipment, and I at first was like, no, like I gotta wait. Like I just spent some money on something else. I shouldn't be doing this. I went on a golf weekend. I shouldn't be spending money on bourbon. And then they're like, okay, fine. And then all of a sudden I see in the thread, we're 2 bottles short. We need 2 more in order for them to do the shipment. And I'm like, okay, sure. You pulled my arm hard enough. Took like 2 seconds to twist me into the deal. But it was fun. Like it's cool to get some bottles that we couldn't get here. Like, let's see here. Ian picked this one, and I said I'd give it a try. Old Granddad Bonded Kentucky Straight Bourbon. It's a high rye mash bill, and it's an interesting pour. I got to get some to you, Darryl. It was like a $30 bottle, but then after tax and shipping, it ended up being like a $50 bottle. And I was like, shoot, I don't know if I would have paid $50 for it. It wasn't that good, but it's just a neat bottle to have there. Even like Old Granddad. Hey, you want a glass of Old Granddad or not? Come on, let's go.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. And it's being shipped through legitimate channels, so it's not going to disappear in the mail or whatever.
Right.
And the LCBO is putting their tax on it when it comes in, and that's kind of what you pay for. It's the same if you bring stuff up from the States and have it shipped legitimately. It goes to the LCBO brokerage, you're going to get it, but it's going to come with the tax.
Yeah,
but it is
interesting. Pay some serious tax on things,
right? And it is interesting how much money you spend on it. And I think we had this conversation in one of our earlier episodes about like how you deal with that with the household. Like, does your wife know what you're bringing in? Do you have an allowance maybe? Or what's that situation? Because I know for me, even when I started liking whiskey, I'm like, hey, babe, now there's something that you can buy me for like Father's Day and birthdays. Like, it's an easy buy, just a bottle of whiskey. But then she's like, yeah, but then you went out and bought them all, and now I don't know what to get you. I'm like, babe, trust me, there's a lot more bottles.
There's always another bottle.
But that budget, right? Like, how much do you spend on something, and is it worth it in the end to have it in the collection? How do you justify it? I don't know. I think these are all great bourbon questions, and I mean, we would love your feedback. If you're listening to this podcast, then let us know in Instagram. Let us know in the comments what obstacles you run into with buying whiskey. Is it something that you want to buy more of, but you're hindered by that spouse relationship, or do you have free reign on how much you can go buy?
And what do you end up buying? Like, do you end up buying just a bunch of daily drinkers? Like, that's kind of where I've been at lately. I'll buy one cool bottle, and then I'll buy like 3 or 4 daily drinkers to throw in there. But the daily drinkers go so fast.
Yeah,
that's another problem. Like, you're not afraid to pour them a little heavier because it didn't cost as much, or it's easily available and whatnot. So all good questions, I think.
But I kind of like having that guilt-free pour. I find those easy daily drinkers is like a guilt-free pour, where you're like, you've got a low shelf bourbon, and it's like, all right, I'm going to go have some of that. I can have more of that. I'll just buy another bottle. It's nothing. Little do you know you've bought 3 of them in the time that you've gone through, but it's just like, there's no guilt to it. Just go and drink it. Enjoy it.
Yeah. You can go find one fairly quickly once it's gone, and you can always get it to share with friends. But some of the ones that are tougher to find because they come in once a year or twice a year, you definitely savor more, which adds to how many are sitting on the shelf, and your collection goes from your 3 or 4 daily drinkers or whatever it might be to now you've got 60, 70 bottles sitting around, all like half-mast, and you're being questioned. So how many more bottles do you need? It's like, but those ones don't come around, or it's like that's the only time that one's going to come in, or we might not see it again for 3 years. Whatever it might be. And I always relate it back to like, it's not overly expensive for the most part what I'm buying and what most of us are buying, like between that 50 to when you get into the scotches and stuff, $150. You're not going out and buying $150 scotch. Well, I'm not every couple weeks. Like that's like a once every 4 months, 6 months, once a year type purchase. Obviously there's probably multiple bottles at that price that people have. But when you look at like cases of beer, you're $60 or craft beer. It's easy to go and blow $60 on 6 craft beers.
Yeah.
And you're going to probably drink 6 of those in a weekend easily. You're not going to drink a $100 bottle of scotch or bourbon or something in a weekend unless you've got people over.
If it's a good weekend, if it's celebrating something maybe. But I find that interesting too, in that the scale of whiskey drinkers and what people are buying out there. Like we're talking, and like to me spending like $80 even on a bottle is a big commitment. Like that's a lot of money for me to spend on a bottle, but there's guys out there that is their daily drinker. Like that's a cheap bottle to them, where they're used to buying way more expensive stuff. And I find that like mind blowing.
Yeah. I'll spin off that a little bit too. That's my base range right now is probably that 60, 70, maybe $80. Like if I'm not spending that, I'm just going straight to Wild Turkey 101 or Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
And everything else that I buy is usually in that higher price range now, because it's a different new bottle or a higher end something. So,
and I think it goes to speak to like how you would build out your shelf or build out your collection, because when you're starting out, at least for me, it was easy. Like I got a bunch for Christmas, which kind of helped boost my collection. But then buying some different smaller bottles helps kind of build up that shelf without spending too much money. But then, like you said, now that you've kind of built out that shelf, you're really looking to pick specific ones to add to it now, something that's going to stand out there.
And I think that's something really good for an early person early on in their whiskey journey is to grab a bunch of smaller, cheaper bottles, kind of figure out that flavor profile, grab a scotch, a bourbon, a rye, Crown, whatever the case is, see what you like to try, and then kind of build off that. And build that collection out a little bit, or the word collection, I'm not a huge fan of. No, because of Instagram. And I'll say this because Darryl's Instagram, if you look at it, it's beautiful, but every bottle he posts is open, right? It's great. That means the guy's drinking it, enjoying it, sharing it with people. Like our tagline says, share good whiskey. But you look at some of them and it's these shelves and shelves and shelves of unopened high premium whiskey that are not, they're just like an idol sitting on the shelf. And I don't like that too much. I want to enjoy it. I want it to be, something. So when I hear the word collection, it kind of goes sour to me, because it's like when you said my shelf, and I'm like, that's a great term, the shelf, right? Because it's open and it's free for people to come over and try stuff and enjoy it. So what do you guys think of that collection term?
I respect that. Like I see what you're saying, and like especially with like the idolizing certain things with it, like being careful with that aspect of it. The fact that they're all openable and all able to go. I think for me, the collection aspect is like I said with the Blantons, like collecting all those different bottle toppers. Or Instagram does it to me where like I'm flipping through my feed and you see like a Weller's collection of like all the different colors in the nice little pyramid, and it's just like this perfect neat little package, and I'm like, oh, I want it.
Yeah, I haven't really thought much about the terms collection, shelf, or bar. For me, it's just making it accessible to people. Like if somebody comes over or wants something, or messaging somebody on Instagram and we're going to trade samples, or going to send samples out, it's like just go through, like everything's open, or everything can be opened. There's nothing there that you can't ask for to try, because you never know what somebody's going to want to try and what they're gonna love and be like, I would have never bought that bottle, but I love it.
Right. But do you have that one bottle that is like special reserved where you're not going to open it until blank, or
one bottle? I have
gonna,
a few.
You got a few. Yeah. So those are like, they're special to you and you're waiting for that special moment to make that memory with it necessarily, I would think, right?
I don't have one other than I keep saying there's one I've got to open that I haven't, and it's been sitting here since last fall. I think it's the Baker's 7. New bottle. Still haven't cracked it. Not for any reason other than it's probably just pushed to the back of the shelf and I haven't grabbed it.
Yeah.
And then every time I see somebody post it or talk about it, because a lot of people that I follow have been doing comparisons of the new versus the old, and I'm like, I really need to open that and try. But there's nothing like, I think I've got the one bottle, probably the Avalor, that we talked about in the top 3 whiskeys of 2020.
Yeah,
that's probably the one I'd go to the least, just because of what I got it for. But if somebody wanted to try it, somebody would definitely get a glass of it.
Yeah, I have a couple that I've acquired, mainly picks of things that are special to me. So one was Southern Whiskey Society. I went down there to meet the podcast guys, and I brought back a bottle of Willet. So that hasn't been opened yet. That said, it will be. I just don't. I have to have somebody come and say I want to try that, and then it's probably going to be open. But I've kind of hit it so that it's not going to be open too quickly. There's that. I have a Blanton's Gold that I traded for really early on in my whole whiskey experience.
Yeah.
With the guy in Alberta, that was just a random Facebook message trade. I traded an old OWA and a bottle of Four Roses single barrel for a Blanton's Gold, and I was stoked about it, and it's just sat there still since. So I'll open that at some point, but nothing that's unopenable, but a few that I've kind of like, well, let's just hold off on that.
Yeah. And
so
because we've been in the pandemic and not together, there's probably less of those type of bottles. So like Ian and you and I, on the one night that we did the JP Wisers, and Dave, you were there, we opened the 23-year-old. But the 22 and the 35 that I haven't opened yet, because I want to open those with people around that will enjoy. Like, let's do the lineup of the 3.
I got a 22 open. I'll send you some.
Okay. I love that too. Where Ian's like, no. Ian's like, don't open your bottle. I'll give you a shot first.
Sure, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those, like, those are bottles, like, they're once in a lifetime ones that you want to share and have that memory with a group of people that enjoy whiskey, and not just open it and pour it yourself. For me personally.
Now, do you keep empty bottles of like a special bottle, or do you get rid of all your empties?
I've got a collection of empties sitting in the garage.
Oh shit! I gotta go back to my recycling and pull out what I throw out.
I always have schemes in my head of things I want to do with the bottles, so I'm not holding them because of any reverence or special memories. It's more like, I've got a project in mind because this bottle's cool. Like a bullet bottle's an old-fashioned feeling bottle. So I've got one of those sitting around somewhere in the garage. So that's more why I keep them. Everything else goes in the recycling, even though I should take it back for my 5 cents.
Yeah, I have a bunch. I probably have 30-ish empties in the garage. Half of them was started for a bottle drive for kids that come around in the neighborhood. And then I just started stacking them. And I'm like, like, who knows what I'll do with this, right? Like, we live in Canada, so it's cold. I thought about doing like a YouTube studio in the garage. And I don't want my whiskey to freeze or boil in the summer. So it's like, let's throw some sweet tea in there and make a nice background and just like glue the bottles to the wall so they don't move ever. But that's very ambitious. That'll never do. But there are a couple, like Darryl says, like the Belvedere bottle that I have. I like that. I'll probably like look at an infinity bottle or something along those lines with it. A really cool bottle actually to keep would be Spirit of York. And I'm not sure if you know those guys, Darryl. They're down at the distillery district. They just started doing some stuff, and they Their bottle is like this glass spiral bottle that's vodka or gin right now. They don't have whiskey out at the LCBO, but they have some stuff coming, I think. But their bottle is super cool, and it's a glass stopper, or a glass cork essentially. So I've kept that bottle of gin and pulled the sticker off and everything. And I'll probably make that like a decanter bottle. JP Weiser's has an old fashioned mix that I like to throw in a decanter, and I'll probably use that bottle for that. So just a fun bottle to like pour random stuff out of and have somewhere. So yeah, I do like bottles for that. But
yeah, they have very cool bottles. Another one I would love to get my hands on, I think it's Belvedere. It's like the really old school, like feels like it looks like a 1920s type bottle with all like the diamond shapes and everything on it. That would be a really sweet bottle to keep around.
Yeah, I think it's fun to have stuff just, we're all crafty people. So I think like the ideas in our head may be more elaborate than we'll pull off most of the time, unless you look at Dave's wall in a day, he makes that. But for the most part, I think it's fun to think about, but keep them for that.
Yeah, it's fun watching me change this wall over when I'm like talking to clients, and then when we're recording, it's like, oh shit, I have a client Zoom call. I gotta like take all the bottles, put them down, maybe leave a couple up because you want them to know that you like whiskey. So at the end of the job, they might give you something. But yeah,
you gotta plan it where you just take that perfect photo of where you're sitting.
Yeah,
with just the limited bottles you want them to see.
Shove the rest of them behind my back,
and then buy a green screen. That you can just drop down from the ceiling and use that as your background.
Okay.
All right. Last question, then we'll end this. My question to you and the audience watching this or listening to this on the podcast is, if you walk into the liquor store near you and you see a bottle that you really want, what's the price where you struggle with? What's that price for you? And I think it's going to range for everybody. So that could be a $20 purchase that's kind of hit or miss, or that could be a $300-$400 purchase that's going to be like, I don't know. Where's that at for you guys? I'll say mine at the end. And then the people listening, if you have a like a cap where you're like, oh, we really got to think about this one, or it's just like buy it now. What's that monetary value?
For me, I would say 50, 60 bucks or less is an easy buy. Like that I can buy, and I can skate it through the system. The system being my wife. Where above that, I'd say above 60 is when I would ask, and I'm not necessarily like asking for permission, but we do this a lot in our relationship, at least, is just kind of like, are you okay if I make this purchase right now? Like this is why I kind of want it. And then we kind of make that decision together.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So not a buy and ask for forgiveness later.
That's mine. That's mine.
That's kind of my
hack. My hack. This is my whiskey buying hack for you. Is when you go, like for me, like my wife likes wine. So if I get a couple bottles of whiskey and I slip one bottle of wine in there, then when you get home, you hand out the bottle of wine and then go downstairs with the whiskey. It's pretty wise move, boys.
Goodness, he bought $100 bottle of wine for me
again.
I didn't know
use cash payments only.
My wine's gone really through the roof. I don't know if I have a price point. Like once it's over $150, then I've got to have tried it. And I'm like Dave, most of what I'm buying would be in the $50 to $60 range or less, without thinking about it. When I get disappointed, it's when you buy like a bottle that, you see people talking up on social media or something like that, and you go and pay that $80 price point or $90 price point for a whiskey, and you take it and you're like, no, this got robbed on this Canadian markup or whatever it might be.
And that's where like I appreciate Ian's wisdom a lot in this, because he is very straight up with me. Like even in our text group between the three of us, where I was like, man, I really want an E.H. Taylor. One of my buddies found it, but they're sold out now. I didn't get a chance to get there. And he's like, nah, dude, you should just go buy a rare breed instead. It's way better. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Like, well, don't say that too loud if E.H. Taylor's listening.
Well, I still want the bottle.
Send
It's
us
a
something
beautiful
to actually
case.
make this. We need to make the comparison between that and Wild Turkey.
Yeah.
There we go. There's a bourbon shootout right there.
Well, hold up. Let's just say that small batch is $90, almost $100 in Canada or in Ontario. That rare breed $65. And if you've tried them both, you know where I'm coming from. That E.H. Taylor is a great whiskey, but for the small batch being almost $100, it's just a hard pill to swallow. It looks great on the shelf. If you can find what I'd say grab it, especially with the markup in the States in some spots. But overall, like grab someone, don't be the hype train's real, but you're still trying to figure out what you like. And as Darryl said, that $90 bottle may just not strike you the way you thought it would. So then you're sitting there with this $90 bottle that you want to love, and it's like, I just don't know. So I'd really try to find what you like first and not be worried about what's next before you get to that point, right? So I'd say mine's around $200. There's a bottle at the LCBO right now, Little Book Chapter 4. It's if you know Little Book, it's in a black like wooden box, the Booker's box, only it's a darker stain. It looks beautiful. It's a nice presentation. I have Little Book 2 and Little Book 3 here. So I really would love Little Book 4. If I had Little Book 1, I would have bought it already, but I just don't have it. So I've already don't have the collection as it is. Yeah. And it's a brown rice whiskey. So there's a lot of brown rice in it. And it just, if it was just straight bourbon that I knew, and a lot of people have talked really highly of it, but it's $200 here. So that's one that's I've been hemming and hawing on for a long time. But anything below that, if I've heard, or if I have I have a good text thread with a bunch of guys in the States that have a vast whiskey knowledge, and I'll be like, hey, what about this? They say buy it. I'm probably in on it for like 150 to 200, depending on what's going on. But beyond that, that's kind of my tipping point. So yeah, that's it. I'm not dropping that all the time, but when I see a special whiskey that I want to try, I'll lean towards that fee. That said, the Old World was 150 and I didn't grab it. So Darryl ended up doing that, and I'm kind of sad I didn't grab it because I really enjoyed that one. I like that one a lot. So yeah.
And when you get into that price range, it's a lot easier for me to pull the trigger on that when I've got a client gift card or something that's been sent.
Smart.
And then you're like, well, I'm really not that far out of pocket if I don't like it.
Yeah. See, I had those client gift cards, but
I had hockey pool money. I don't know if you remember in the other podcast,
the hockey pool money.
2 hockey pools. So I had a collection there. So then when especially when the Alberta buy that we brought in came up, then it was a much easier purchase, where it was like, I didn't necessarily want to get in on that. I would have saved it for a special bottle draw locally that I could have gone and get, but I was like, sure, why not? Let's go for it, because I had that money already set aside. So that is kind of smart to set aside money as you're going, so that way when a bottle does come up, then you already kind of have that reserve to be able to go get it, and you're not dipping into your monthly budget necessarily. Your kids aren't going to be able to get groceries for a week because you're going to buy a $500 bottle, but saving up for something for when those drop.
It's true. And I have to call myself out on something. I said collection when I talked about those little books.
We didn't want to say anything.
Yeah.
So you do like a collection.
I do like a collection as well, but they're open. They're all open. So
yes. Yeah. See, and I think that's still a thing. Like, it's like, I could see what you're saying, where if it's a collection that's all unopened and it's just a bunch of bottles there. But even if you're keeping those empties so that you have those, like my Blantons, I hope to collect those over the next 10, 15, 20 years, just getting a bottle here and there when they drop in the LCBO, to be able to like spread that out and like enjoy that last moment when I get that last bottle. Like, the first one's going to be empty, but I'll still have them all kind of together and have those toppers for my own little keepsake, right?
Yeah, I had a fun thing with a buddy in Kansas. Corey, who does Good Booze, Good News. I'm not sure if you've seen that before.
Amazing YouTube.
Yeah.
You gotta check it out.
The 813 Whiskey House. Check that out on YouTube. It's fun stuff. But we were on a Zoom call randomly, and one of his buddies was like, "Oh, I really need." It was like an N or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So, and it was like the certain N that he needed. So I have a cork like box that I just kind of rumble through, and I'm like, "Oh, this one," and I sent it to him with just randomly. And the guy got it, and he's like, "No way, this finished the topper thing and all this stuff," and it just made his day. So you can, like, that stuff's kind of cool, where you can throw some love around and make people happy by just being generous and having fun. So the collection, I guess, is a good thing overall, but as long as it's open, don't just be a hoarder. So
agreed.
Yeah.
I feel like we
wants
could
to
talk
hear in
forever
20
about
years.
this too, because we all enjoy what we're doing here with the whiskey, and even just that, like buying a bottle for somebody else, my limit goes up. And like,
true.
I would spend more money on buying a bottle for one of you guys than I would for myself, almost. Like, you just, like, there's a gift that you know the person's going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can talk about this for days because we love bourbon, and this is what we'll enjoy doing. So thank you for taking the time to listen, hang out with us. Give us some feedback on special bottles that you have or are waiting to get, maybe.
So you have homework. Give us some comments on special bottles, that price, and do you like collections or do you not like collections? What is the answer to that?
Is it a shelf or a collection? And we're Northern Proof. Share good whiskey and let the proof do the talking.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.